can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Friday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. Anthony Hartwig with you. Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. They go the extra mile for you, and we try to do the same every day on Running Point and on YSN. And we thank you so much for tuning in. We got a good show today, as we are going to have the head coach of Garrettsville Garfield Lady G-Men on with us at 1:30. He'll be joining us live on the show. Aaron Gilbert, he's a good friend of Running Point. We're going to have him on to talk about the end of his regular season and how he's getting ready for tournament time coming up. They are the 2 seed in that Division III Northeast District. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about with him at 1:30. And then we're also obviously going to recap last night and talk about the weekend, because we have a lot to talk about of games that are going on the weekend. Some tournament games, D1 will get started on Saturday, and then obviously there are a handful of teams that are wrapping up their regular season on Saturday as well in other divisions. But a lot of teams wrapped up their regular season last night, and let's have a look at the scores from last night's games. We go into all the way into last night, and we have the first score that came in. It was East getting the win over Lowville, 56-50. A good win for the Bears. Remember the start that the Bears had? Obviously, they hit the ground running. They were kind of everyone's darling to start the season. They were taking the world by storm. Everyone was high on East, and I'm not saying that we're not still high on East. I've talked plenty of times about how I think East is a very tough team to prepare for because of the unorganizational way they play basketball, in the sense that they don't run offensive plays too often. They don't really, hit you with sets that you can scout. They just use their athletic ability and their talent to just play one-on-one basketball and say, if you can beat us one-on-one, then we, more power to you. But we're going to isolate Cologne, and we're gonna try to make you stop her, and good luck with that. And she's a great basketball player for sure. So East is hard to prepare for because of that, because you can't really make a defensive game plan and say, well, when they do this, we're going to do this, because they can do whatever they want. They're just kind of a go play basketball team. So that's what makes them so tough to prepare for. But it's good to see them get a couple of wins here to end the season. They had a tough stretch where they were losing a couple of close games. They lost to Ursuline and Mooney twice by a combined 12 points in those 4 games. So they're right there with Mooney and Ursuline in the top of the SVC. They just couldn't finish down the stretch of situational basketball. And I'm sure Coach Tanisha Franklin is going to be really, really hammering home situational basketball these last couple weeks of practice. I think Tanisha Franklin does a wonderful job with that program. And there's a couple of programs in the YSN family that are taking those steps. They've been struggling for the last couple of years, but they're taking those steps to be in the right direction. East is one of them. We talked about Middle Ridge before. They're another one. 2 wins last year. They're in a winning season this year. Wellsville, obviously, we've talked about them as well. They got the win on Wednesday to capture their winning season. First time in a while they've had a winning season. So a couple of programs in the YSN family that are really doing a good job turning things around and taking steps towards being that consistent program that can be in the conversation in years to come. So East gets the win last night, 56-50. And then obviously I'm going to go right off the jump with our next score and just say this should have been the premier game last night. Like, this should have been the one where every media outlet was at. The light should have been the brightest. We were there. DJ Oakley was there. calling the game. But I feel like there should have been like everybody who's anybody in the area should have been at this game, because Salem welcomed in one of the best teams in Division One when they're healthy, and they were finally healthy. They had all three of their star players back last night. Maslin, Jackson. This is a team that won the Federal League last year. They were favorites to win it again. Obviously, they dealt with some injuries that didn't let them win the Federal League, but they got healthy again. They came off their state finalists last year. The knock against Salem from the Salem haters in the world was, well, you're not bringing in the big boys. You're playing your conference schedule, but you're not playing any of the Federal League teams in Division One. You're not going out and playing anyone from the Maslin Akron area. Like, bring in St. Vincent St. Mary, bring in someone from the Federal League. And Salem said, okay, bet. Let's bring in Maslin Jackson, the Polar Bears, that feature two Division One commits on their roster. One of them going into the Power Five, and Panabandla, who is going to Wisconsin, and then Pilata, that's going to Dayton. Let's just bring them in, and let's just silence all these doubters once and for all. And Salem held those two, who are Division II commits, to 10 points each. 10 points for Panabandla, 10 points for Pilata. That's all you need to know. That defense, if you thought it was just fake because maybe they're not playing teams that can really handle it, maybe they're not. No, like, if you weren't sold on Salem before for some strange reason, maybe you were looking at the sale and you were thinking something's off. I can't buy into Salem. I don't know what you're looking at, but you're not looking at basketball, because Salem, if you weren't sold on them yet, you better be last night, because that was. I mean, that was the best win of their season. I know a lot of people will say Marlington probably the best win of their season, and obviously they also they carry a win against the number one team in the power rankings, RPI, with Canfield. But you beat Maslin Jackson, who would probably be top 5 if they were a YSN school in that RPI rankings, despite their losses this year. I think their schedule and the wins that they do have would probably put them in the top 5. To come out to welcome them into Salem and to just beat them with defense, really. Yes, Salem's offense was good. 45 points is enough, but to hold that Maslin Jackson team to 39 points, impressive. We saw this Maslin Jackson team the last time they were on YSN was last year when they played Howland in the regional semifinals down in Maslin Perry, and they were unstoppable on offense. They couldn't be stopped. And Howland was a really good team last year, if you remember, really good defensive team. And Maslin Jackson kind of did everything they wanted, and they had almost everybody back from that run last year healthy. Last night they even brought back Campbell, who was a player that missed several games for them. This was supposed to be her glorious return back to the roster. We have Campbell back. We have our triple-headed monster. And I think they came in like with their shoulders cocked a little bit, swagging up. We got our big 3 back. This is our time now. We're going to be running into the tournament, and they just ran into a brick wall, man. Total brick wall. Salem is for real. I'm telling you, this is going to be, if the numbers line up and it goes into Canfield Salem, it's going to be the best district championship we've seen in a long time. I called the Canfield game last night, and we saw what they did to Poland, and then we see what Salem was able to do to Maslin, Washington. I mean, it's going to be a very fun show, and if that happens, I'm getting way ahead of myself as a fan because I'm kind of fangirling over here. But if it does happen, then the storyline is going to be interesting on both sides, because obviously Salem went after Canfield in the tournament draw because they realized they had Canfield's number. They realized they matched up well with Canfield, and it was just a much smarter decision to do that than to say we're going to take our own bracket and risk the fact that Marlington would chase us into it instead of going after Canfield. So they said, let's not even leave it up to Marlington. Let's just go right into Canfield's district as the 2 seed. Let Marlington have their district, which just got a lot harder because no one was going to go into a bracket with a 1 and 2 seeds in it. So the bracket that's harder to get to a district championship in is Marlington's bracket for sure, when you look at the teams that have kind of shifted over to Marlington's district. But then, the decision for Salem, that's going to be the storyline on Salem's part. We've had Canfield's number. We matched up well with them, which they do, and they've proven that they match up well with them. And they've proven that their defense is particularly good at teams that shoot well. You look at their opponent's shooting percentage, it's very low. If you score against Salem, it's usually not by the perimeter jump shot being really on. They usually keep you from doing that. The teams that have scored against Salem have been doing it with physical play down low and maybe some live ball turnovers here and there that they're able to get out and run on. They do not give up the 3-point shot very often, and they definitely don't give up the uncontested 3-point shot, which is what Canfield really, really hinges on. Like, they love their shots. They shot 29 threes last night. First time against Poland, which was the other time I called them, they shot 31 threes. They hit 10 last night. So 10 of 29, it's a pretty good 3-point shooting night for a team. Abby McElroy hit 5. But when you look at the way Salem plays defense, they like to keep people off the 3-point line. That's why they beat Canfield the first time. But then on Canfield's side, once again, this is all if that game happens. If you're just tuning in, I'm just talking hypothetically. They both have to take care of business, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because both teams looked so impressive last night, and I'm just itching for that matchup. So on the Canfield's perspective, they feel a little like, oh, you think we're the easy route, right? Like, you think the 1 seed that it has been number 1 in the RPI in Division 2 all year, like, you think we're the easier route. Like, you think that you have a better chance to get past us. And they feel a little, shot from that. So they're going to be very motivated. It's kind of bulletin board material, to be honest. Like, oh, okay. And I talked to some players, I talked to some coaches, and that's kind of what they're going to try to grind into their players, I'm sure. Like, okay, you thought the 1 seed was the easier route. Like, okay. And they're going to come into that. If they weren't motivated before, like, if you can't get up for a district championship, you're in a tight spot already. But if they some reason needed more juice, that'll give it to them. And so will the fact that their seniors have never beaten Salem. So the Salem has had their number not just this year, but for a while. Those seniors on that Canfield team really want to beat Salem. They really want to prove to themselves that they can beat Salem. So it's an interesting storyline if those two teams take care of business and make their way into the district championship against each other. But once again, to get back to last night and get off my tangent of talking about the future, it was Salem that got the win last night, 45-39 against Massillon Jackson. We go into the next score, a very, very strong win for Western Reserve, 48-43 over South Range. This was without one of their seniors and Maddie Leone, who obviously has a season-ending injury. But it was senior night. They got a lot of energy after that. Brooke Shantz had 17 points for the Blue Devils to kind of lead the way. And South Range does not give up over 40 too much. So to score 48 on them and really Coach Fitchell, he always talks in his post-game interviews, like, scoring above 40 this year has been a good offensive day for the way his offense is going. So to have South Range be able to score 43 and have their offense going the way they want to, and then still beating them 48-43, that's impressive for Western Reserve's offense. We've talked about this a lot about Western Reserve this year. Western Reserve has been a team this season, especially the first half, that really relied on their defense. If their defense wasn't doing the work, they were in trouble because their offense wasn't confident. They weren't really taking shots when they got them out of the offense. But now, and I think it started in that McDonald game where they came out and scored like 22 points in the first quarter, and it seemed like everything they put up went down. From that game, which was McDonald at home a couple of weeks ago, from that game on, it seems like their offense is more confident, more willing to shoot, more willing to take some chances. And because of that, you're going to see a lot of players scoring. I mean, Olivia Hughes was in double figures last night as well. Lisa Eichert can score really well for them. Livy Jones can score. So they have a lot of players on that roster that can score if they're confident in themselves. And I think that McDonald game at home a couple weeks ago was that click, that spark they needed. And they still play really good defense. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they've slacked on defense, and it's not like they're still not a defensive team. But when you play good defense and you rely on it, but your offense isn't there, that can get you into trouble, especially when you're playing teams like Springfield and Waterloo twice a year that can score against almost anybody, no matter how good a defense you are. So to see Western Reserve start to pick up some confidence on the offensive side and not being the Brooke Shawn show anymore. She scored 17 of 48. So um, there were games in the first half of the season where she might score 20 out of 30. I'm saying, like, she was a huge chunk of their offense. Now I'm gonna do the math because I want to be right on this. Let's see, 17 by 48. Let's see what percentage that is of the scoring. 17, 48. That 35% of the scoring was Brooke Shawn. So, you would love her to be that number, like in between the 30 and 40% of your offense to be her, because obviously she's how your offense goes. Your offense goes how Brooke Shawn's goes. But if she's able to be about 30 to 40% of your offense instead of 75 to 80% of your offense, I think Western Reserve is going to have a really good night. And they absolutely did last night against South Range on senior night. It's a good test for them both. It also brings up the cool storyline, like South Range will play United in the tournament. The first round of the tournament will be United versus South Range. And United just beat Western Reserve in overtime over the weekend, 42 to 38. So, I don't like to play apples and apples with matchups because every matchup is different. And obviously, the way that South Range attacks United is going to be different than the way Western Reserve did. And the way that United played Western Reserve would be different than the way United plays South Range. You just never know what happened. But you look at those common opponents and you go, well, United beat Western Reserve by 4 in OT. South Range lost to Western Reserve by 5. Maybe that gives United a little bit of an edge going in, a little bit of a confidence boost that, like, hey, we beat a team that South Range lost to, because I believe their only common opponent before that was United, and it was Poland for United and South Range, and they both lost to Poland. So, but I've said it before. I think the five on five, starting 5, United was better than Poland. The difference in that game was Poland had a lot of depth they could bring off the bench. They didn't lose anything in their 7, 8, and 9 players, and United just couldn't keep up with that. The fourth quarter, that caught up with them. So that'll be something to see too. Like, can South Range stay out of foul trouble and use their depth on the floor to take advantage of United in the fourth quarter? We'll see about that. Definitely, for sure. But they obviously could not do that against Western Reserve, who is also a team that doesn't have the deepest bench in the world. South Range was able to lose 48-43 last night to Western Reserve. One more tournament tune-up for South Range, though. They will play Brookfield on Saturday. We're talking about the United team. They were dominant again last night, 61-18. They took care of Beaver Local. We go to Ursuline. They were able to beat Hubbard 48-24 last night. And now we'll talk a little bit more about Canfield last night. We talked about them in the grand scheme of things against Salem and what that possible district championship could look like. But last night, Canfield was able to go into Poland and beat the Bulldogs 56-37. I mean, it was a little bit closer than the 19-point game would suggest. But it really, you watch that game, and I think, hi, Angel Torres. Nice to have you. But you watch that game, and I think you kind of realize that Canfield just had more advantages on more spots. They were just, they were the better basketball team. It just seemed like they had a height advantage in almost every spot on the floor other than Katie McDonald. They were shooting better. They made better basketball moves. It was just one of those games where even when Poland was close, you felt like they weren't that close. It was one of those games. I just think Canfield has more weapons than Poland. I think that was that's my honest takeaway of that game. I think Canfield was just better. Abby McElroy had 15 points. She hit her first 4 threes of the night, so she was 4 for 4 to start and then ended with 5 threes. So whenever McElroy is going, that Canfield offense hums. And then in the second half, Poland slowed her down. She had 12 at halftime, finished with 15. The problem was Canfield's secondary players started to go a little bit in the second half, and they got threes from everybody instead of just threes from McElroy. They had 10 threes as a team. They were 10 for 29 on the night by my count. That is not official. I was just trying to keep count because I know in the first game I did, they shot 31, so I was interested to see how many 3-pointers they shot. So By my count, they were 10 for 29 last night, which is a good team percentage when you shoot that much. And they ran away with it in the fourth quarter, really. I mean, they just kind of said, they just overwhelmed Poland with the offensive power. I mean, Harmon in 2 games against Poland, Carly Harmon has 38 points. She's, for some reason, a little bit of Poland's kryptonite. Kate Solly had a little bit of a better game last night than she did against Poland the first time, but I think that's because more players for Canfield were shooting. The first time these two teams played, Poland did a really good job on the main scorers for Canfield when you look at their stats, like the ones that really score for them consistently are Treveri, Solly, and McElroy. And Poland did a pretty good job against those three. The problem for Poland the first time was Carly Harmon went off for 24, and they couldn't catch up with that. This time around, Harmon still had 14, and then McElroy had 15, and Solly had 13, so that was a balance there. But then, Ritz hit a three, and, I think I'm trying to think who Macy Kalina, I think, hit the other three. So they had threes everywhere from the floor. They can just shoot. They're a team that can shoot from anywhere. A lot of players on the roster can shoot, and when they're on, they're tough to beat. That's just the reality of the thing. Canfield, that's a great win for them to kind of speed them into the tournament, and they get the once again 56-37 win over Poland. Poland has one more tune-up before they head into their Division 3 district. It'll be against Mooney on Saturday in Youngstown. Girard was able to beat Badger 52-33 last night. Girard ends Badger's 17-game winning streak. Badger had a big layover between this game and the last game, and obviously their last game was such an emotional one with winning that NAC championship for the first time in 38 years. And I think they just kind of went into Girard, and this can be, remember what I said, and I've been saying this for the last month. These late season, not especially late season, all non-conference games, if handled the right way, are a win-win. But especially these late season ones, because losing to Girard for Badger does not do anything against them. It doesn't hurt them in any way, shape, or form unless they let it. Right? So unless they let it hurt them, it does not hurt them at all. It doesn't affect their seeding. The seats are already in. They're locked. It doesn't affect their positioning in the tournament. It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't affect their conference. The only way that this can negatively affect Badger is if they let it. If they let it get into their head, they let it hurt their confidence, and let them put their heads down, because that's the only way this game can hurt them. Same thing with Poland, by the way. I was talking to Coach Blanche after the game. The only way that game hurts Poland is if they let it. It doesn't affect them in the tournament at all. They're not going to see Canfield in the tournament. The only way that game hurts the Bulldogs at all is if they let it. Same thing with Badger. Yes, tough loss by the same point differential, 19 points. But the only way that hurts Badger at all is if they let it. And they got to make sure that they stay confident in themselves. They stay with their loose self. I think they play best when they're kind of loose, and they can't tighten up because they think, oh, now our win streak is gone. Maybe it'll be good. Sometimes we see teams lose win streaks before a tournament, and it refocuses them a little bit. Maybe it'll be good for them to lose the win streak. You never want to lose. I never like to say that losing is a good thing, but maybe they can bounce back from the loss, and it can be a little bit of a mental reset. Yo, Angel Torres says yo. She already said hi, but now it's a yo. So yo, right back at you, Angel Torres. Thanks for tuning in from YouTube. While you're at our YouTube page, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you feel so inclined to. Like this video and like all of our videos that we post on YouTube, and also hit that notification bell so you never miss a minute of the video content that we put up on our YouTube site. But once again, Girard gets the win over Badger, 52-33, the final score there. Springfield gets the win over LeBray. They're not fazed by the crossover MVAC match, 67-40, the final score there. Boardman was able to beat Liberty last night, a big win for the Spartans as they welcomed in a very athletic, and we talk about Liberty a lot. They have two players that can really wreck games if they get on the run, with Watson and Foster. So Boardman kept them in front of them, and won against Liberty 57-48, the final score there. We saw Valley Christian beat Cheney 35-28, good win for the Eagles. On the boys' side, Cheney was able to beat Perry 64-52, and then the last score of the night, Waterloo was able to beat Champion 50-38. A note on the Brookfield game, as they were able to beat Pie Valley. Sophia Hook gets over 1,500 points in her career, so congratulations to Sophia for hitting another career milestone. I could talk about how good Hook is at basketball until I'm blue at the face. I mean, it would be we could be here for a long time, because she's just one of the best basketball players we have on the YSN. We have so much talent. Like, I could say that about so many players. Me and Matt Morrison just had like a breakdown of the power rankings on his show in the last hour, and it's some like every team that popped up, it was like, well, when you talk about this team, you have to talk about this player because she's one of the best that we have on YSN. And I started to think like I'm getting really repetitive because that happens a lot with these girls basketball teams. It's like a lot of teams just have this one or two players that's like, oh my gosh, you're one of the best players we have. And then it's like, oh no, you're one of the best players we have. The postseason awards are going to be a monster to sort through for our executive staff at YSN, that's for sure. Because there are so many really good basketball players, basketball programs, and we have a good basketball program to talk about next. We are going to be joined by the head coach of the Garrettsville Garfield Lady G-Men, Aaron Gilbert, joins us for kind of a end of the season recap. Coach, how we doing?
Pretty good, Anthony. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on. You're a good friend of the show, and we appreciate you being able to hop on with us today and talk a little bit more about Garfield basketball.
Yeah, not a problem at all today.
Well, here you are, 19-2 on the season. Your only two losses are kind of splits with conference foes who, that MVAC great tier. I think we've said it before. You could not expect to go undefeated in that conference. It would have been really hard. It would have been a miraculous thing to do. Now that you're through that conference, what were some of your takeaways going through it night in and night out?
It's really good. You better be on your A game. You know, I mean, we had two games this year where we had, some mental breakdowns and some slip ups, and, it ended up costing us the conference. So, you had to be locked in from the jump, and every night, I mean, really, it was, I really thought looking at the season before anything even started, you might be able to win the conference with two losses. It was that good. And then with Crestview winning it with just the one loss, it was tough. It's as tough as any conference race that I've been a part of in 16 years of coaching girls basketball and 20 plus years of coaching girls and boys.
Let's talk about that Crestview game. Obviously, it went into overtime, and it didn't fall your way. And we've had a lot of people talk about how good Addison Rhodes is. I just wanted, from your perspective, you had to scout against her. You had to go up against her twice. It might be 2,000 points by the end of her career if everything goes right. What do you see out of trying to play her and trying to stop her that just makes her such a good basketball player?
I think physically she's not your typical freshman. She's got the build that she can take the wear and tear of a full high school season. Junior high, you're playing, 14, 16 games. You're probably going to be one of the bigger players out there. You're not getting banged around as much each night. And you're not getting guarded by a senior, an 17, 18-year-old girl like you are in the middle school where you're, getting guarded by somebody your same age. So it's a little bit easier easier is not the right word, but a little bit easier to stick out and dominate at the middle school level than to be able to transition that right into the high school level. And really, the first game we played them, I even think that Blatch said it where, it was a big game. It was a big environment. And I think that kind of, you could kind of see her tighten up a little bit. And then, being on the road, sometimes a little bit easier to be the road team because the pressure falls on the home team. The pressure falls on them to keep the crowd involved. That was our big goal when we went there, back at the beginning of January. Take the crowd out of it. Don't let them cheer because that cheer is going to fuel the players. And the game that we played, was a week and a half ago now. I mean, it was just a tremendous high school basketball game, girls or boys. it was a tremendous environment, a tremendous game, back and forth. I don't think either team got a lead bigger than 5 in regulation, and then overtime it ended up getting away a little bit. But she just, every time they needed a shot, she hit it. And hindsight's 2020 about what we could have done, but kudos to her for stepping up and hitting those shots when the time was needed.
There were times when it seemed like they were going to win it in regulation, but every time you needed a shot, it seemed like Laura McCoy would step up and make a big play to keep you right there. We've talked about her a lot, but now down the stretch in those kind of big games, what has she brought to that table and brought to those big game situations and those last second type of crunch time plays that she's able to make?
I think with Laura, she's a player that for 3 years, she demanded the ball. She had the ball regardless the score. She knew that the baskets were going to come through her, or that she needed to go and make those baskets. And I think, with this year, with the surrounding cast, she knew still, last 30 seconds, it's on me. And it's a little bit more, I don't want to say comfortable, but it is a little bit more comfortable because you look up and you're like, okay, I've been there, done this before. Whereas, some of the other players like Addison, for example, this is the first time she's had that situation where, late game, last second stuff, it's going to go through her. Laura had those. I just think about, they got, he was up 4, and then Laura gets a huge steal and reverse layup to kind of like, okay, tighten this thing right back up. So, with her, it's just having that confidence to be like, okay, been here, done that. And, I'm going to do everything I can to get you guys the win.
How do you think she's handled the atmosphere of big games? Because LeBray never had games where they were like fighting for a conference championship per se. So you go into games with Laura McCoy where, okay, there's a lot on the line in this game. We're trying to fight for a conference championship. How do you see her handle those kind of moments?
I think that was some new territory for her, and she even made that comment a couple times just about, how exciting it was to be in this. And, she provides a very interesting perspective coming from another school and knowing, we have our standard at Garfield. I was telling somebody the other day that we've had a decade now of at least 15 wins, 10 straight years. You go back 11 years, we were 5-18. You go back 12 years, we were 1-20. So outside of those 2, then the streak started. And so a decade of at least 15. So for a lot of our players, they don't know anything other than what we've done. And for her to step into that and see, okay, this is how it gets done. This is what needs to get done. She's a player that her whole career, she's seen double and triple teams. So late game situation, okay, they're going to double her. All right, I've been here before. But now I've got, a couple people I can pass it to that, can finish the job. And so I think for her, just having that excitement and really like the thing I loved about having her around this year was she was just as excited when people were making plays as she was, super humble about, even hitting the 1,000, super humble about, scoring 32, having a bunch of assists. But like, you can watch her on film when other people are making baskets, you see a little fist pump from her, you see, that joy from her. And even sometimes where, we were able to put some other people in the game. And so she's sitting with the group, they were cheering just as hard for that group as that group was for them on the floor. And I think that was something that was really special about her this year.
Let's talk about your bracket. Is where you're in tournament time. You're in Division III. You got the 2 seed in the district, which means you were able to take your own kind of bracket and be the top seed in it. You have kind of 2 league games waiting in the wings with Camel first, and then if you're able to win that game, Champion with the bye. Do you like playing league teams in a tournament, or would you rather play the ones that really don't know you and bring a little bit more of unfamiliarity to the
I think a couple of us had kind of talked about before the bracket, and I think the consensus was because of how our tier was, nobody wanted to play anybody 3 times. I don't care who it was. Nobody wanted to play a league team 3 times just because the familiarity and just you want to see tournament time. It's kind of nice to see somebody new. When I coached boys on the other side of the state, we didn't, our sectional was small. It was 8 teams. And then, 1 got out, and then district, was still the 4 team. But the way our district and sectional went, we might not see a non-conference opponent in the tournament until the regional. Like, it was just, we played everybody in our conference only once at that point, but it was just, tournament time is kind of neat to travel, to see somebody new. Now with the way the brackets are, you do have that opportunity to play a conference foe a third time. And I can't imagine, if it would have matched up, us playing Crestview for a third time or us playing Brookfield for a third time, which is a possibility down the road. Playing Champion a third time, playing Campbell a third time. You got that familiarity, you got to find something. You got to find a wrinkle somewhere, because we both know what we're going to do, with Champion. Mike and I have coached against each other now for 7-8 years, going back to, district play back in 15 or something like that, I think. And so we're familiar with what each other want to do, defensively, offensively. So you got to find a little twist in there somewhere, and, hope that it's just enough to get you through to the next level.
We're keeping the tradition going of Garfield and Champion playing in the tournament. I mean,
Yep.
We got to keep it up. Now, it won't
always
be
playing for something, whether it be in the sectional level or the district championship. It's always at some level, yes.
But I felt like you just had to keep that going. But there is some unfamiliarity on that other end of the bracket if you're able to get through Campbell and Champion with Villa Anna, St. Joe's, and Kirtland. I know you probably haven't looked too far ahead. That's 2 games. You don't want to do that as a coach. But do you know anything about either one of those 2 teams? Because they're both non-YSN schools as well. So can you share anything about one of those about both those teams and what they might, bring to the table in a possible semifinal?
Yeah, I think when you look at like Kirtland's that just traditional sports school that they're going to be good in everything. They're going to compete. Their kids are going to compete. They're going to be, no matter what sport, they're going to be well coached. They're going to be well skilled, and they're not going to beat themselves. They're young, but other than that, I know a couple players here and there, but not a lot. With St. Joe being new to the district, they're kind of an unknown. I do know they have some skill. I know they like the full court press. I know they got a freshman who's really, really good. And that's a player that has to get watched. But, they're a team that, they're going to run and gun and get up and down the floor and press you into submission. So, if we're able to get through, games 1 and 2, either one of those 2 matchups is going to be a good one. And, even going back to, with Champion, you look at the 2 times we played them already this year, the one at our place was a dogfight. Bella went off against us. And then the second time, we had a lead, and then they clawed themselves right back into it. And same with those girls. They're not going to quit. Watching them last night with Waterloo, they hung around and were really in it until about the last 2 minutes when Waterloo was able to hit a couple shots. So, it is, tourney time is weird. Anything can happen. You don't know how the calls are going to go. You don't know. I'm glad we're playing at home, but you just never know.
The thing that makes Champion scary is they're constantly getting more and more healthy. So you're constantly seeing more people pop up on that roster.
And and each night they got a different guard who gets hot. Right. They've got 3 guards, and 2 of the 3 are hot every night. You just have no clue what 2 of them it's going to be. And like you said, they are getting healthier. They are getting more comfortable with the stuff that they're starting to do. They've been doing all year, and their shooting will keep them in any game. That's the thing. And traditionally, you look at when we've played them, it's a 2 to 3 possession game, no matter what the level is. So it's not going to be easy for either of us.
Starting to be the champion that people kind of thought they would be coming into the season before the injuries, which
they're going to be. You look at what they return. You look at the league next year, obviously with what Crestview returns, but you look at what Champion returns. They're going to be right up in that race. They're going to be a real juggernaut next year.
Now, as we look at the bottom half of the bracket, which is teams that you won't have to deal with until an eventual district championship if you're lucky enough to get down there. But you have some teams that came down from Division II that popped into your district with Lakeview and Poland, both coming into Division III this year. Obviously, Brookfield's in there too with Mooney and Liberty and Pymatuning Valley. When you see those teams on the other end of the bracket and you start thinking about like what your bracket looks like, what were some of your thoughts when those teams picked your end of the district?
One of the things when the draw comes, you get the results on Saturday afternoon. Usually you get to see, okay, what number am I? and then you start thinking like, okay, it's, the beauty, there's a beauty and a curse of being that high seed, because the beauty is you get to kind of pick your place, but then you got to sit and wait back to see who wants to come after you, and you kind of wonder like, okay, who thinks they can get us, and that's kind of where you kind of look at that motivation, where it's okay, when your name's sitting on that line, how quickly do they press that button to say we want this line? Or how long do they think, do they take the whole 3 minutes, or within the first 15 seconds, do they say, we want this team? And there were a couple of those when draw came out. There were a couple of people that right away said, I want this line. And there were a couple teams that sat there and really tried to pick the best path for their team. And so, you tuck that in the back of your mind, you keep that as some motivation. But, I think I think it was 7 teams that moved out of the district from last year, either went up to D2 or down to D4 out of the 23. So, I'm not good at math, but it's about a third, I think, of the teams that are new. And so now you've got some new opponents. I still can't figure out how some of them are D3, but I don't count bodies, so I don't understand that one either. But at the same time, it's kind of neat to have some new teams in there that you kind of, do some homework on and find out about them. But that bottom half is loaded. The teams that you mentioned there with Brookfield, PV, and Poland and Mooney, and they're going to be there's some teams that, I mean, honestly, it's kind of a toss up as to who's going to come out of that. I mean, I know Poland kind of seems to be that wild card. I kind of think they're that favorite to come out of there. They're a solid team that has a good path to get through. But you've got some teams in there that they get hot, just like against us. Anybody can get hot, can beat you on a night. So you got to be prepared come tourney time.
Yeah, when you were getting ready for the draw and you kind of were trying to think about what teams you might have to deal with, you had to assume that whether you were the 2 or the 3, with Laurel being the 1 seed, you were probably going to be in the harder district or the harder bracket.
I honestly thought 2, 3, and 4 were all going to come over to the same side. Like I thought, Laurel's going to have their side, because it kind of happened that way in soccer. I think soccer had 28 that were in the district, and team 1 went here, and then I think it was like 2 through 7 went on the other. It was some weird combination that went away from them. But yeah, I mean, obviously you look at Laurel's roster, you look at their schedule, people are going to do everything they can to stay away from them. And then, coming over to our side, but I was surprised who kind of went into what area, who went into what line. But yeah, I mean, I really, it's fun. It's things that you pay attention to. You kind of make little mental notes of, who wants to play who and how it's all going to work out. But then, it's like, okay, you're going to play Laurel. Well, you're going to either play them at the district level, or that's your regional matchup, because the 2 brackets cross bracket for regional. So, somewhere along the line, if you want to get out, you got to play them.
Right. What would it mean to you to win a district championship this year and get to Cuyahoga Falls after all the stuff in the offseason, all the doubts the outsiders had on you guys, the things that you lost last year? What would it mean to this program to, kind of prove that they can not rebuild and reload and just get right back to winning a district championship?
I think that's the pipe dream. That's, a number 1 on our goal sheet. That was even ahead of the league title, believe it or not. That's become the goal. Whereas, like I said, a decade ago, it was just winning a tournament game. Now it's, trying to get back to that regional level. And at tournament time, it's fast. You've got to be prepared. You can't have a bad night. But with this group, it would be nice to cement their legacy. We in 17, when that senior class graduated, the 18 class, it was, how are you going to be remembered? They made it to the district level, but won a league title. With the 22 class, they got to regionals twice, which had never been done. And so with this class, it's like, okay, well, they did it twice. You've got a chance to do it 3, which has obviously never been done either. And so how are you going to write your history book? Like what page, what's going to be the final page? What are we going to turn to and see? I mean, they've already cemented the most regular season wins since 1988, which was tremendous. We had a chance to break it, but we lost a game along the way. So we only played 21 this year, but yeah, I mean, it's all about the legacy. It's all about, refocusing our goals, after we lost to Crestview, with the league, it's like, okay, now we got to refocus. What do you want to get to? And it's like I told them in the locker room, okay, this goal is crossed off. What's the next goal? But then more importantly, what are you willing to give up to get that goal? Because it isn't just going to happen. We're the name that everybody wants to beat on our side. We're the 2. We've got the target. It doesn't matter if you're the 23 or you're the 3 seed. They all want to beat us, and it would make their season to knock us out. And so that's what we're dealing with. And so with the girls, it would just be nice to give them that. It's a joy you can't explain unless you're in the moment. They talk about people who win different levels and they're like, what does it feel like? It's just really hard to explain it unless you're in it. You can see the joy, but the inner joy, almost the relief that you feel would just be tremendous. And it's a new site. Going to Struthers is a new place. That's going to be kind of neat for us. We've been going to Lakeview for the last 4 or 5 years now. And so, going over to Struthers will be a neat facility to see and a beautiful place to play some basketball.
You got to try the popcorn, the Fieldhouse popcorn.
I've actually heard that from more than one person now.
It hits different. It sounds crazy, but it hits different. Yeah. So
then even with that, they wouldn't tell us where we were going until like last week. It was just like they had the 2 brackets, and I understand, Lakeview's in the district, so you want to see what's going on here, but like, everybody was asking because, with the bracket, people wanted to kind of choose, geographically what's kind of closer to our school. And last week, or actually, I think after the boys draw was Sunday. So I think Monday, this week, Monday, they released all the district sites because they even did it over to D1 with, I think it was the Brunswick and Medina district Brunswick Medina district. I think they released that on Monday too. So I don't know. Like if you don't want them to host a home game, then put them in a different district. I don't understand how that all works sometimes, but, right. And I know not everybody wants to host, but at the same time, like just flip-flop things. I don't know.
But then it's weird because they're okay with teams hosting a regional in softball. It happens. We saw it happen. So it's like, hey, but in basketball, let's just not have that happen.
Yeah. It's
weird.
It's OHSA, man. You gotta love it.
Gotta love it. Coach, we love you for coming on. We thank you so much for the time and talking a little bit more Garfield basketball. We wish you the best of luck to the tournament run, and hopefully you'll go far enough that we can talk to you again about some championships.
Yeah, hopefully we get to cover us for quite a while. We're going to do our best to keep you busy for a couple weeks. So
let's do it, Coach. We'll see you soon, and thanks again for the time.
All right. Thanks, Anthony.
Aaron Gilbert, the head coach of the Garfield Lady G-Men, 19-2 on the year. Like he said, the most wins, or tied for the most wins in a regular season by any Garfield team. So congratulations to them on that. Their record is better than it was last year when they won a district championship. So everything's looking good for Garfield. They're the 2 seed in the district. They definitely have a tough bracket, but they will try for a repeat of a trip to Cuyahoga Falls, and we can't wait to watch them on their way to it. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll preview the night and the weekend on the network and talk about what games are going down in the next 2 days. And we'll be right back on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet. Hold on. In Austintown.
When looking for home design inspiration, don't just be inspired, be Baird inspired. Whether new or remodeling, Baird Brothers has the latest trends like shiplap to refresh your home. Go from inspiration to installation with our wide selection of in-stock American hardwoods. From the rustic charm of antique oak to the warmth of traditional cherry, Baird Brothers has what you need to make your home inspiring. Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
Your teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
Hi, I want to tell you about my Trish Yearwood home collection available at Sheely's Furniture. With 2 locations serving Ohio and Pennsylvania, Sheely's is one of the country's top sellers of my home collection. And the best part? At Sheely's, you never have to wait for a sale. They offer everyday low pricing as well as a price match guarantee, so you can shop the Trish Yearwood home collection with confidence. Come see my collection with something to offer for every room in your home and get it all with free local delivery only at Sheely's Furniture.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you as always by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. They go the extra mile for you, and we try to do the same on this show and on this network every single day. So we go into the games that'll be on the network tonight. We have a lot of games. It's a busy night on the network for YSN. So hold your breath, or I should say take a deep breath, and let's go into the matchups tonight. We will start at 6 o'clock. This is a 6 o'clock tip. Liberty traveling to Champion. Matt Maher will be in the Purple Palace for the Flashes as they try to get a win over Liberty. Wyndham will host Badger. The school's broadcast network has you covered with that at 7 o'clock. Brookfield travels to Garfield. The school's broadcast network has you covered with that one too. Brookfield, with their win over Newton Falls on Wednesday, now a part of a 4-way tie in the MVAC grade tier. They'll try to keep that up in Garfield. It's the Holy War tonight. Ursuline travels to Mooney. Alec Caberna will be on the call. 7 o'clock, the tip-off for that one. A big one in Poland as well. This has been a district matchup the last couple years, and it's been a good one each time they play. Poland hosts Cheney, and the school broadcast team will have you covered from Poland. Columbiana will travel to Struthers. Once again, Bob Zanny and the school students will have you covered there from the field house. 7 o'clock tip-off there. Geneva travels to Edgewood. Sam Torres will have the call for you there with the Warriors and Zach Vinsel hoping to have another big night. He's already scored 40-plus in a game this year on YSN, so he's trying to have another big performance for the Warriors. Gerard will go to West Branch. Michael Janaki will have the call for you there. That should be a fun one in the non-conference slate as Thomas Cardero, Gus Johnson will go up against Joey Jackson and the Warriors. We have Grand River Academy going to Archbishop Hoban. Ty Bartell making the trip down to Akron again. 7 o'clock tip-off for that one. Howland travels to Canfield tonight. Richie Giuliano will be in the driver's seat for that one. Hubbard goes to Salem. It'll be David Williams on the call there. 7 o'clock is your tip-off for that. Jackson Milton travels to Middle Ridge. 7 o'clock tip-off. Matt Morrison making his return to the call as he'll be in Middle Ridge for that one. LeBray travels to Crestview. This is another big one because LeBray is one of those 4 teams tied at the top of the MVAC grade tier, and they'll have to beat Crestview to try to stay on top of it. Larry Scragg will be on the call. McDonald travels to Springfield tonight. Jamie Thompson will have the call for that one. Newton Falls goes to Campbell Memorial. They'll try to bounce back. Campbell is one of the 4 teams that is tied at the top. So this one of the teams is going to fall out of first place, and the log jam will get a little bit less congested after tonight with Newton Falls at Campbell, and it'll be Noah Ricks on the call for that one. Sebring will travel to Western Reserve. I will be in Blue Devil country for that one at 7 o'clock. Steubenville goes to Beaver Local. Chris Sigler on the call there. Donnie Riccatelli will be in Spartan country as Boardman will host Warren Harding. And Warren JFK will travel to St. Thomas Aquinas. Dom O'Brien on the call there. Last but not least on the network, Waterloo will travel to Lowville. Eric Hughes on the call in that one. One game not on the network tonight. It'll be Wellsville traveling to Edison. By the way, in Crestview, it'll be a boys-girls doubleheader at 5:30. LeBray will play Crestview on the girls' side. Larry Scragg will be there for both games. So you got a boys-girls doubleheader in Crestview. I'm sorry I didn't see that to start. Girls basketball was on the bottom of our spreadsheet, but you count them up: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 games on the network tonight. So it's a big, big Friday. Only one game that is happening that we will not be at. That's a huge night for us. We go into the weekend on Saturday, some boys games, some girls games, and some tournament games. Reminder that the tournament games will be pay-per-view. So we'll start with that at 1 o'clock. Austintown Fitch will travel to Boardman, and Kent Roosevelt will travel to Archbishop Hoban. One payment of $9.99, I believe, will get you access to both of them, just like football tournaments. It is the exact same deal with tournament games in basketball. Will be pay-per-view. That'll be to cover the costs of the streaming fees that the OHSAA hands down to us to broadcast tournament games. So that's why we have to put up the pay-per-view paywall. So once again, tournament games on the network will be pay-per-view. Don't want to let that be forgotten. So 2 tournament games on Saturday, both in Division 1. Fitch at Boardman for round 3 of that AAC matchup, and then Hoban will host Kent Roosevelt, both at 1 o'clock, both pay-per-view. We go into the regular season matchups, which will be free on the network. South Range travels to Brookfield at 12:30. I will be on the call there. DJ Yoakley will be in Salem as they welcome in Notre Dame Cathedral Latin. Poland will be at Cardinal Mooney. Alec Caberna will be on the call. At 2 o'clock, Lisbon will host Valley Christian. Quinn will be there for that one, Quinn Pushkar. And then Matthews will go to Heartland Christian. Mark Franken on the call there. A scheduling note that McDonald at Garrettsville Garfield on Saturday has been canceled. That game is not happening. A couple of boys games to be on the network, though. East Liverpool will play Weir for the OVAC championship at 2. That's going to be the OVAC 4A championship. East Liverpool versus Wheaton at 2 o'clock at Harrison Central High School. Nate and Rob Kelly will both be on the call for that one. And then Heartland Christian boys will be in action a little bit. I don't think there's a little bit of a time gap, so it won't be a straight up doubleheader. There should be some time in between. But Mark Franken will still be there for that one. West Branch versus Heartland at 7 o'clock for the boys. So that'll be your weekend action. And then, of course, Super Bowl Sunday. You know I'm excited about it. So I just have to say go Chiefs. And I think we had a comment, if I don't mistaken, from Angel Torres that says she's also rooting for Kansas City. So let's go. I'll be strictly busy from Sunday at 6:30. Don't try to contact me. It'll be fun. Fun weekend for us. Last day of the regular season for girls basketball. And then we go into the last week of the regular season for boys basketball next week, which means it is closer and closer to tournament time where all of the games, all of the teams, boys and girls, will both be in bracket play. That is very, very soon. Just 2 weeks away from that. 1 week away from the girls being all in tournament time. And we're going to have some fun. I'm going to have some fun. It all starts Saturday, tournament play, Division 1. Reminder, it is pay-per-view for tournament games. Other than that, I'm going to sign off for today. This has been Running Point on YSN Live, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Thank you.